A budget has been approved for the city's upcoming fiscal year. A plan to widen a portion of U.S. Highway 70 means relocating underground utilities, and some teacher rehires at Ardmore schools were approved after a slight delay. These stories and more on This Week in Ardmore from Ardmore Leader. I'm News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thank you for downloading episode 65 of This Week in Ardmore. This is a weekly podcast from Ardmore Leader dedicated to independent coverage of local news. Now, if you're a subscriber to this free podcast, I want to let you know you did not miss an episode last week. We've got to catch up on what I've been following around Ardmore, Oklahoma for the last 2 weeks, leading up to May 29th. Ardmore has a roughly $119 million budget for the upcoming fiscal year. That is down nearly $20 million from the current operating budget, with large drops in grant and loan spending. City commissioners first discussed the future budget during a retreat back in March, and last week's public hearing for the budget saw no questions or discussion from commissioners or members of the public. That new fiscal year begins on July 1st. City commissioners last week also approved 2 agreements with the Oklahoma Department of Transportation dealing with a future widening of Highway 70. The agreements had to do with relocating underground utilities between Interstate 35 and Fox Den Road over on Ardmore's west side. One city official told commissioners that the widening project may start in 3 to 5 years. A language error at last week's regular board meeting of the Ardmore City Schools Board of Education delayed the hiring of some teachers, but a special meeting was held last Friday to hire those 9 certified teachers who have already completed 2 years with the district, after the original agenda item back on Tuesday, May 19th, indicated that they would be hired on a temporary basis. Earlier this month, Ardmore found out that several local high school actors and 2 musical performances from Ardmore and Plainview schools were nominated for the OKC Broadway Kelly O'Hara Awards. That award ceremony is happening on Friday, May 29th at 7 p.m., less than 3 hours after this podcast is released. In the printed newsletter this weekend is a story from State's Newsroom about deteriorating road conditions across the country. Just weeks after a failed effort to increase revenue in Ardmore for street repairs, Amanda Watford writes about rising costs and revenue shortfalls faced by other cities across the U.S. and some of the familiar issues that cause roads to deteriorate in the first place. Up on the website this weekend and in that printed newsletter is a column from Ardmore co-owner Connor Choate. You can read this week's column along with previous editorials and letters to the editor over on the opinion section of the website, ardmoreleader.com. Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele will wrap up the news with his Edward Jones market snapshot commentary from Thursday to talk about this week's inflation data and how big tech is affecting the stock market. And stick around until the end of the episode, because every episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule. This week, I've got some details about upcoming public meetings, upcoming primary elections, and an opportunity to travel back to the Old West this weekend with a tale you might not expect. But anyways, that's the headlines. Now, let's catch up on what happened last week and this week in Ardmore for the 2 weeks leading up to May 29th, 2026. Finances and a highway widening project highlighted the final Ardmore City Commission meeting of the month. The commission last week approved a nearly $119.5 million budget for the fiscal year that will begin in July. Commissioners also approved annual audit services for the year. Commissioners last week also laid the groundwork for future widening of U.S. Highway 70 by approving agreements for utility relocation. But last week's regular meeting started with City Finance Director Sandy Doty answering questions about a proposed budget before commissioners vote.
Yes, I'm here to entertain any questions that you may have about the budget for 26-27.
Any questions? Okay. No questions. Thank you, Sandy.
That 30-second clip was the entirety of the annual public hearing regarding the city budget. Neither the commission nor the public had any questions about the nearly $119.5 million budget for fiscal year 26-27. That approved budget is almost $20 million smaller than the current fiscal year budget, with major spending cuts compared to this year for projects related to water, wastewater, and Ardmore's 2 airports. The newly approved budget was first reviewed by city commissioners during a retreat back in early March. 2 agreements for financial services were also approved that will prepare the city for annual financial audits. Crawford and Associates will provide consultation and audit preparation services for $58,000, while Casey Russell will actually perform the audit for just over $25,000. Doty said that Crawford and Associates has been providing that audit preparation service to the City Hall since 2013.
He's also done this performometer, which kind of dumbs down the whole audit process where you can understand what is actually going on, because when you look at those pages, they'll put you to sleep at night. There's like 50 of them.
Doty said that Russell has also been retained since 2013 to actually perform the city's annual audit. When asked whether she has considered other accountants to perform these services, maybe at a lower cost, Doty said that the number of accountants actually providing services to governments has been getting smaller over the years. Commissioners also discussed 2 items related to relocating water and sewer lines along U.S. Highway 70, just west of Interstate 35. 2 agreements with the Oklahoma Department of Transportation were approved last Monday after several questions from commissioners in preparation for widening that road. The largest of the 2 agreements, worth an estimated $2.4 million, will see water lines relocated from the interstate west to Foxden Road, with ODOT reimbursing the city about 30% of those relocation costs. The second agreement between the city and ODOT, worth an estimated $34,000, includes 100% reimbursement to the city for sewer relocation engineering services. Commissioners asked questions about the reimbursement amounts and current rights of way along that stretch of road. Assistant City Manager Sean Guerin said that the planned widening is basically kicking the city out of a state right of way.
And so part of the reimbursement are for areas where maybe our easement, we had an easement outside of that they need to move into. They're reimbursing us for that portion. But if it is in their right of way and we don't have our easement, then they're kicking us out. And it's not just us, it's AT&T, ONG, everybody's moving. When you look at these plans, they're really difficult to read because it has everybody in them. And it is a big project. It's probably going to happen, I would say, I don't remember the date on that. It's going to be probably 3 to 5 years. They'll be widening that.
A list of teachers hired by Ardmore City Schools was tabled early last week, but eventually approved during a special meeting just days later. The delay came after contract concerns were raised less than 2 hours before the school board's regular meeting. Among items on that meeting agenda for Tuesday, May 19th, was an item including a, quote, additional 1-year temporary contract, end quote, for 9 teachers. Now, according to the special board meeting called later that week on Friday, May 22nd, that agenda removed the word temporary. Now, when the original agenda item came up during the Tuesday regular meeting, board member Jimmy J.D. John immediately made a motion to table the agenda item.
I motion that we table item 15 as there may be a conflict in contract with the AEA.
Now, that was John referring to the local Ardmore Education Association, the teachers union, but he did not publicly elaborate on that potential conflict. Board member James Foreman said that he wanted to hear more about the potential conflict, but seconded John's motion, which put the motion to delay action up to a vote. That item was tabled on a 2-2 vote with no discussion and with board president Steve Oliver absent. Immediately after the meeting, John declined to comment to reporters and instead referred questions to Ardmore Education Association President Amanda Sharp. School Superintendent Andy Davis and Board Vice President Jacqueline Woods, after that regular meeting, were not familiar with any potential conflicts. But Sharp said that the potential conflict came down to the temporary contract offered to those 9 certified teachers who have already completed 2 years with the district. Sharp said that she received an email from an Oklahoma Education Association advocate about 90 minutes before the meeting with details about the issue. Now, according to state law, teachers cannot be hired on a temporary contract after 2 years unless that hire meets certain criteria. Here is Sharp speaking immediately after last Tuesday's school board meeting.
they can only be hired to replace a teacher who is on an approved leave of absence or has been expected to return within the school district, or a teacher who is a retired member of the Teachers Retirement System of Oklahoma, or a teacher who is employed by a school district on an emergency or provisional certificate.
Now, Sharp said that she notified John about the issue before Tuesday's meeting, but that she didn't have contact information with any other board members or school administrators. So the board ended up holding a special meeting later that week on Friday, May 22nd, to revisit those proposed hires. The agenda item removed the word temporary, and that item was approved unanimously, according to a live stream of the meeting shared by the district. That entire special meeting lasted about 1 minute, with Board President Steve Oliver again absent. Does your group or organization have a public event coming up? Every episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule, where we give listeners an idea of just a few things happening around town. Email your event details to connect@ardmoreleader.com, or give me a call at 319-9688 and tell me all about it. You can also text that number with things like event details, news tips, or maybe even some photos you might want to share with the community. Text me, 580-319-9688, and let's advance local news together. Let's wrap up our in-depth look at local news with Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele to hear about some stocks of local interest, and we'll hear his Edward Jones Market Snapshot commentary from Thursday afternoon.
This is financial advisor Cody Steele from Edward Jones, bringing the daily financial market report. Equity markets closed higher on Thursday after the April Personal Consumption Expenditures, or PCE, inflation report came in largely in line with expectations. Additionally, initial jobless claims remained contained at 215,000 last week, while first quarter real GDP was revised lower to 1.6 amid downward revisions to investment and consumer spending. From a leadership perspective, the healthcare and technology sectors were top performers, with each gaining more than 1%. Technology was supported by strength amongst software names following better than expected earnings from Snowflake, while strong results from Allegiant helped lift sentiment across the healthcare sector. Bond yields finished slightly lower, with the 10-year Treasury yield closing at 4.45% and the 2-year yield at 4.02%. Oil prices ended only modestly higher at around $89 a barrel, reversing larger gains from earlier in the day following reports that the U.S. and Iranian negotiators reached a memorandum of understanding to extend the ceasefire and begin further negotiations on Iran's nuclear program. Inflation was in focus Thursday, with April Personal Consumption Expenditures, PCE, inflation released this morning. Headline PCE rose 0.4% for the month, driven in part by a 5.5% increase in gasoline prices, and was up 3.8% from a year ago. Core PCE, which excludes food and energy, rose 0.24% for the month and 3.3% on an annual basis. The April reading brought the 3-month annualized rate of core PCE to 3.8%, underscoring that near-term inflation pressures remain above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. In our view, Thursday's data reinforces the likelihood that the Fed will remain on hold in the near term. That said, we believe the bar for rate hikes remains high, especially as labor market conditions have come into better balanced and annual wage growth has slowed from nearly 6% in 2022 to around 3.5% in April. Taken together, these conditions support a patient approach from the Fed, and in our view, policymakers are likely to hold interest rates steady this year. After a volatile close to the first quarter, when the S&P 500 fell 9% from prior all-time highs, equities have staged an impressive rebound since April. The S&P 500 gained more than 18% since March 30th, while the technology-heavy NASDAQ has risen 28%. The rally has been even more pronounced in semiconductors, with the PHLX Semiconductor Index up 80% over the same period, supported by continued AI-related capital spending. While we would not characterize markets as cheap, valuations have not expanded meaningfully during this rally. In fact, both the S&P 500 and NASDAQ are trading at forward price-to-earnings multiples below where they began this year, while the PHLX Semiconductor Index's forward multiple is little changed. This suggests the recent move higher has been driven by strong corporate profit growth, as opposed to the expanding valuations. First quarter S&P 500 earnings per share rose nearly 27% from a year ago, helped by strength in technology and AI-exposed areas of the market. Importantly, earnings growth has not been limited to tech. Cyclical sectors such as financials, industrials, and materials also posted earnings growth of more than 20%, pointing to a broad strength in corporate fundamentals. After such a sharp move higher, a period of consolidation would not be surprising. However, we believe the broader backdrop for equities remains supportive, underpinned by solid profit growth, steady economic activity, and resilient labor market conditions. On Thursday, U.S. equities closed higher. The Dow closed up 25 points, or 0.5%, at 50,670. The Nasdaq closed up 243 points, or 0.91%, at 26,917. The S&P 500 closed up 43 points, or 0.58%, at 7,564. And in the bond market, 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 4.45%, lower by 0.03 percentage points. In stocks of local interest on Thursday, Walmart was up 36 cents to $118.90 a share. Dollar General was up $5.57 to $109.90 a share. Dollar Tree was up $17.13 to $113 a share. Best Buy was up $10.20 to $74.74 a share. OG&E was down 80 cents to $47.38 a share. ExxonMobil was down 94 cents to $146.96 a share. Devon was down 16 cents to $44.11 a share. And lastly, Halliburton was down 27 cents to $39.33 a share. In commodity markets on Thursday, the price of crude oil was up 59 cents, or 0.67%, at $89.30 a barrel. And the spot price of gold was up $48.60, or 1.08%, to $4,530.10 an ounce. This has been Thursday's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cody Steele, member SIPC. Serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 333 West Main Street, Suite 275 in Ardmore, Oklahoma. If you would like additional information, please contact me at 580-223-3870. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
All right, here's the rundown of how you can find Ardmore Leader in between these podcasts. We distribute newsletters across town. You can get a digital copy of that newsletter emailed to you every week as well. Check out the website ardmoreleader.com and then scroll to the bottom of the homepage to get signed up for free. You can also find us on social media. Just search Ardmore Leader on whichever platform you use and see if we're there. You can do the same thing with whichever music and podcast app you use to subscribe to this podcast and get notified of new episodes every week. And hey, if you want to post your thoughts, your ideas, or even art for Ardmore to see, we can do that for you as well. Visit ardmoreleader.com, head to the opinion section, and then submit your letter to the editor. You can also email me, soundoff@ardmoreleader.com. Send me your letters, poems, cartoons, pieces of art. You can even record a voice note on your smartphone and then email that for inclusion on the podcast. Make sure you include your full name in whatever you email me so you can stand behind your submission. And now, if your group or organization has a public event coming up, let me know, and I'll see about getting it on the schedule. In public meetings next week, the Carter County Commission will hold their regular meeting on Monday morning, June 1st at 9 a.m. at the County Administration Building on the corner of A Street and Broadway. The agenda for that meeting is available on the county's website, cartercountyok.us. The Ardmore City Commission will hold their first meeting of June coming up on Monday, June 1st at 6 p.m. on the third floor of Ardmore City Hall. That agenda can be found on the city's website, ardmorecity.org. Shakespeare in the Park has returned to Central Park. Take a lawn chair and some snacks to Central Park in downtown Ardmore for the remaining performances of Much Ado About Nothing, with performances scheduled for Friday and Saturday, May 29th and 30th, both at 7 p.m. But if weather doesn't allow an outdoor performance, they've got it covered. They'll be moving to the St. Philip's Episcopal Church, just across McLish Avenue from Central Park. Admission is free for the Shakespeare in the Park production of Much Ado About Nothing, both of those coming up on Friday and Saturday, May 29th at 30th, 7 p.m. each night at Central Park or St. Philip's Episcopal in case of rain. Central Park will also be filled with music to wrap up the weekend during a free orchestral concert. The First Baptist Church is hosting the Concert in the Park coming up on Sunday, May 31st at 7 p.m. Ice cream and water will be available. All you need to bring is a lawn chair. This First Baptist Church concert in the park set for Sunday, May 31st at 7 p.m. Ardmore Young Professionals is relaunching and hosting a Discover and Connect event coming up on Thursday, June 11th from 5 p.m. until 7 p.m. at The Yard, 410 West Main Street. Meet the board and connect with other young professionals in the community. The relaunching of the Ardmore Young Professionals is happening on Thursday, June 11th at The Yard in downtown Ardmore. To RSVP for that event, you can find the Ardmore Young Professionals on Facebook. With primary elections coming up, the Ardmore Chamber of Commerce wants to give Republican voters some info on the candidates in 3 local primaries. This candidate forum is happening at the Ardmore Convention Center coming up on Thursday, June 11th at 5:30 p.m. Organizers have invited candidates for the Carter County Assessor's Office, the Carter County Commission District 3 seat, as well as the candidates for the District Attorney for District 20. This Republican candidate forum is scheduled for Thursday, June 11th at 5:30 p.m. at the Ardmore Convention Center. Juneteenth is just around the corner, and Ardmore is getting ready to celebrate. Coming up on Friday, June 19th, the East Ardmore Revitalization Committee will hold their Harlem Nights Juneteenth Karaoke Night. That's going to be happening at the Murray on Main Event Center coming up on Friday, June 19th. Tickets for that are $25. Proceeds will go to the East Ardmore Revitalization Committee. And an outdoor block party to mark Juneteenth is also coming up on Saturday, June 20th, over on East Main Street. Details, including dates and times, are going to be announced soon for that. I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thank you for listening to episode 65 of This Week in Ardmore. Follow us online, ardmoreleader.com, or on social media. And until next Friday, I hope you have a positive week ahead.